everybody, welcome back to Disciple 101. I'm so glad you joined me today. So I'm going to be talking about two stories today that are kind of intertwined because they both tell us so much more than what this story presents, because these stories are more than just stories. So let's get started. So we are going to be starting in Mark chapter 4, verse 35 through 40. And it starts off and says, "And the same day when the evening was come, he saith unto them, Let us pass over unto the other side. And when they had sent away the multitude, they took him even as he was in the ship, and there were also with him other little ships." So here they are in the ship, with other little ships in the little port, and they're like, "Hey, let's go to the other side." And so they're like, "All right, let's go to the other side." So they went to the other side, and they left the multitude. Well, they sent them away, and they went to the other side. But while they were going to the other side, there arose a great storm of wind, and the waves beat into the ship so that it was now full. So this was very gradual, like the storm came, and then the wind started to pick up, and then the waves started becoming bigger, crashing into the ship until it was full, and they were fearful that they were going to sink. And so they're like, "All right, well, where's Jesus?" And he was in the hinder part of the ship, asleep on a pillow. And they awoke him, and they said unto him, "Master, carest thou not that we perish?" And he arose and rebuked the wind, and said unto the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And he said unto them, "Why are ye so fearful? How is it that ye have no faith?" Wow. So this passage is just incredible. I mean, really. And I'll share with you what God has been showing me about this passage. And the other story that's intertwined with this one is in Matthew 14, verses 22 through 31. So we're just going to read that really quick so you could see how much they relate. So it starts off and says, "And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship and go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone." So this was also a gradual time. The multitude had drifted away. He was up on the mountain, now alone after prayer, and his disciples were already like halfway to the point that they were point destination. So then it goes on and says, "But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary." So just like the first story, a big windstorm came, and it was tossing the boat, tossing waves in the boat, and the disciples were fearful. But then it goes on in verse 25 and says, "In the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them walking on the sea." I mean, that's just amazing. I just couldn't even imagine Jesus walking on the water, like where the water, you don't just sink in, but it's strong beneath your feet. Like, I couldn't even imagine. But then it says in verse 26, "And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It is a spirit, and they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I. Be not afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. And he said, Come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus." Like, what? I couldn't even imagine. Like, the faith that Peter had in that 1 second to be like, well, if it's you, then tell me to come on the water with you. And Jesus like, come. And so he stepped out of the boat and started walking on the water towards Jesus. His eyes set on Jesus. Like, wow, this is amazing. Like, the feeling that he had was just probably indescribable. And then, I bet the storm was like slow motion around him, where he didn't exactly notice the wind and he didn't notice the waves, but he noticed the solidness of the water under his feet as he walked towards Jesus. But, in verse 30 it says, when he saw the wind, the strong wind, he was afraid. So at first he got out in faith, like, wow, this is awesome. But then he looked away from Jesus and he noticed the wind, the strong wind causing the strong waves. And he was afraid. And he began sinking. And he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him. And he said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? So, as you can see, these stories relate abundantly, because both times the disciples are filled with fear, causing them to doubt the authority that Jesus has. Because that is one of the things which will lead into the other one that these two stories truly show in our lives. So the first thing we have to notice is the authority that Jesus has in the first story. What was Jesus doing when the storm was full force upon the ship and the waves were crashing in and the ship was about to sink? What was he doing? He was sleeping. He was sleeping because he had the faith in God that he knew that those waves could not bring him down. He had the faith in God to know that his protection was over him. He had the faith in God not to doubt God in the storm. But the disciples, however, did doubt. They did have that fear, like most human beings. They did have that fear because they weren't quite sure about Jesus yet, even though they seen him, cast out demons out of people, and they saw him heal the sick. But they were still fearful human beings. And they still doubted him, and they're like, carest thou not that we perish? Like, what are you doing? You're sleeping. And he arose and, he showed them his authority as he rebuked the wind. And he said unto the sea, Peace, be still. And then the wind ceased and there is a great calm because Jesus knew who he was in God. He knew he was the Son of God. Now, he wasn't one to go and proclaim it to everybody in every town, in every country, but he knew it. And he knew he had the authority, but he didn't use that against people. But he knew that he had it, so he knew that he could trust in God, his Father. Because what father wouldn't take care of his child? So we can learn from this story that when the storms arise in our lives, obviously, God's not going to be sleeping when the storms arise, but we have to know that he has the authority over the storms. He has the authority. But how can we trust the authority of God if we doubt him? How could he work in our lives and calm the storms if we don't believe that he is able to calm the storms? How can he do it if we don't even believe that we are a child of God and he is our Father and will take care of us? Then how could he show us that and reveal that stuff in our lives if we don't even know who we are? And so this story shows us that, Jesus has the authority to rebuke the winds, to calm the seas, to calm the storms in our lives. And only through Jesus will we feel that calmness in the eye of the storm. Now, like this story and like the other one, you see how things happened gradually. There's probably signs to the storms, like, oh, here comes the rain, or here comes the wind is starting, the clouds are starting to get darker, and then the wind starts to come, and it's gradual. And, they had all that time to call on Jesus, but they didn't. They tried to do it on their own, like we do, causing us to get into the deeper part of the storm. But what should we do on the first signs that something exactly isn't right? We need to go into prayer, knowing who we are and knowing that God will take care of us. Go into the prayer and be like, God, I see the storm coming. I don't want to handle it alone, so be with me. But a lot of us, we're already in that eye of the storm. We didn't catch the signs. We're already there. But we have to remember that when we are there, Jesus walked on the water. He will walk on the water to meet us in the eye of the storm. When we get there, He'll already be there. He is there in the eye of the storm, so that when we start to sink because we lose faith, because we notice all of the things happening around us, and we start to sink and we cry out, Lord, save me, He immediately will stretch out His hand to you and catch you so you don't fall. But the one thing that we have to remember is we have to call on Him. We can't just expect Him to save us no matter if we call on Him or not. Because if we aren't surrendering our whole selves to Him, like, you are the only one to save me, so Lord, save me in this storm. Save me, I'm sinking. Save me, I'm drowning. If you aren't able to humble yourself and cry out to God like that, then how do you expect Him to reach His hand out and save you if you're not reaching out yours? Because God wants to save you. He loves you. But you have to stretch out your hand too if you want to be saved. So I hope this video helped you guys if you are dealing with a storm in your life and you're dealing with being in the eye of the storm, or you're watching things coming. Be prepared and know that you are a child of God. Trust in His authority, because He will be there with you in the eye of the storm. And humble yourself, take that time to pray. Take that time to humble yourself and cry out to God and be like, God, save me, because I messed things up. And you know that He immediately will stretch out His hand to save you. He loves you, and I love you too, so don't forget that. And I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and remember that I'm always here if you guys need to talk, if you need advice, or anything like that, and know that I'm praying for you guys. And yeah, so have a wonderful rest of the week, as I said before, and yeah, bye guys.